Hello, everyone. This is Dave Paulsen, head basketball coach at George Mason University. And today is the first episode of our Distance Dialogues with DP. And I'm lucky to have Dane Fischer as our first guest. Dane holds the dubious distinction of being my longest tenured assistant coach. And he escaped finally last year. But Dane was an assistant coach with me for 2 years when I was a coach at Williams College, for 7 years at Bucknell, and for my first 4 years at George Mason. So the idea behind this, as I was thinking the other night, like a lot of people, how can I give back? How can I help during this global pandemic? My wife has repeatedly told me I have very few transferable skills. But one thing that I do have is I have an unbelievable group of guys who've been assistant coaches with me over my 26 years as a head coach. And so I thought I could do is have conversations and then short coaching clinics that we could post to YouTube. For every guest that appears, I'm going to donate to DC Central Kitchen. DC Central Kitchen is a relief organization in the greater Washington, D.C. area. Since the global pandemic, they've served 324,000 meals to families in need. It's a long-standing organization, exceptionally well run by somebody who I went to college with, Mike Curtin. And so I'm going to donate to DC Central Kitchen, and I'm asking each one of my guests to donate to some relief organization or something as a way to give back. And then we'll post all these coaching clinics on YouTube. They'll be free of charge to anyone. And all we ask is if you watch it and you like it, you glean something new, to consider giving back to somebody that you're interested in. So it's a long-winded explanation or introduction, which Dane's used to. But welcome, Dane. Great to have you on.
EP, I appreciate it. I didn't realize you had such an impressive title for the show here. That's pretty good. But no, it's great to be here. As you mentioned, 13 total years working together. You've had an incredible impact on my coaching career. A lot of the stuff that we do, I've taken obviously directly from things I learned from you, and certainly, happy to support a great cause here. And there's a local food bank here in Williamsburg that I've donated to once, actually, because you got me on Twitter for that one. So I'm going to re-up with them as well. And as you mentioned, just the idea to try to help as much as we can. All of us are in very fortunate positions. And, there's a lot of silver linings, I think, for all of us with the pandemic that's going on, in terms of spending more time with our family and maybe connecting with people that we haven't as much. But there's a lot of people out there that this is causing some real struggles for. So we will, my wife and I will make that donation as well. And I would echo what you said, that we would encourage everybody else to do the same.
Well, that's great. And so I thought what would be interesting, and this is the first go around, so we'll see how this goes. But I thought to do kind of a question and answer back and forth a little bit. And then at the last half hour or so, Coach Fisher is going to share his screen and show some things that they do offensively in terms of reads with ball screens. But, I think for a lot of people wondering, what's the transition like from being an assistant coach for a good, healthy part of your career to becoming a head coach. So what was that transition like for you, your first year as a head coach?
Well, the thing that I've told everybody, and I've said this to you before as well, is that the line you gave me that always stuck with me when I went to work with you at Bucknell was, I want you to think like a head coach and act like an assistant. And I thought that helped me a lot in terms of just trying to think globally, because I know that's one of the most important things that you have to do when you do get that opportunity. And for me, I think the biggest things that stuck out to me, number one, was just the pull on my time. And I think some of that certainly had to do with a new position, and some of that had to do with going to a place that I didn't know anybody and didn't have ties to. So there were a lot of people that wanted to meet me, wanted to introduce you to alums and donors and that kind of thing. So for sure, the pull on time was really huge. And then the second part of just trying to figure out how to manage our staff, and what are the best ways for us to communicate and make sure everybody's on the same page. I think we have an incredible staff here. But I don't have anybody working here with me that I had worked with before. So everything was new for everybody. So that was something that just took some time to try to figure out the best way for us to communicate, make sure we're all on the same page. And so those are the two things that stuck out. And then as everybody tells you, the day you get the job, it's like you're drinking from a fire hose, and that just kind of goes for for a while, and it did. And but I enjoyed every step of it. I enjoyed any kind of success we had, obviously, as anyone would, but I enjoyed the struggles and the challenges as well. And it certainly felt as prepared as I could have coming in position without actually having head coaching experience.
What was what I guess on your dealing with your staff? So this is a learning experience for me as well. This is selfishly why I want to do this with guys that have worked with me. What are things they took from what we did? What are things that they did differently? Because one of the silver linings that you talked about during this pandemic is it does give us all of a chance, those of us in coaching, to reevaluate everything we do. And there's always a danger in adding too many things and too many ideas, but I think how you can do things better. So in terms of how you communicate with your staff, how you manage your staff, how you met as a staff, what did you end up coming to that you thought was good and effective?
Yeah, so the first thing that I talked with our staff about is I told them, I said, to me, coaching is three things. It's the ability to teach, mentor, and inspire. And I told that to those guys because I wanted them to be able to use that as a guideline for them anytime they're dealing with our players, really. And when you look at a guy, whether he's playing well or not playing well, something off the court with him, whatever it may be, usually one of those three areas needs to be touched on with each guy. And that was something that we just talked about, right from the start. And then the second thing that we did was we do have a daily meeting. We meet at 10 o'clock every day. And the reason I wanted to do that, anybody that I had talked to that made the transition from assistant to head coach, I felt like the one thing that they always kept coming back to was like, I wish I had the staff more on the same page early on, and made sure everybody knew exactly what was expected, and we were all talking to players the same way. Something that you certainly talked to me about, with me a lot about, like the importance of, the same message for the players and that. And I felt like that was going to be a challenge early on because, again, we hadn't worked together. So, they give me a hard time that we probably meet a little too much. I try not to make the meetings last too long, but the reason we decided on 10 o'clock was because I didn't want to come in right away and be like, hey, let's everybody hop in here and meet if I needed, an hour and a half to kind of get my thoughts. And I wanted to have a set time for them so that I wasn't pulling them away from things that they were maybe trying to do with our players. And, as the season went on, I think it helped us be on the same page tremendously. And, probably the drawback from it, as we talked about as a staff this year, was, there were maybe too many times that we got caught meeting a little longer than we needed to. Maybe could have spent a little more of that time with the players every now and then. So, those were the things that we talked about. But I thought from a first year and making sure to get everybody on the same page, I thought that was really helpful for us.
Okay, great. What was one thing maybe that you were worried about that would be a challenge your first year that ended up not being, sometimes things are harder than you think, sometimes things that was a little easier. Was there something that was a little easier than you would have anticipated?
Probably just the planning practices, running practices. I just, again, I felt like that was something that I was like, man, maybe once I start doing it on my own, it's going to be like, oh man, I got to plan this again. I got to think this through again. And that part seemed to go pretty well. And I do think that a big reason for that was the amount of responsibility I could give the assistant coaches. And these guys, they're phenomenal. And they were unbelievable with their scouting reports. And that was one area that I thought I'd be a lot more involved in than at times I was, because they were so good at being able to come to me and say, Coach, here's this team, here's the 3 or 4 things that we got to go over. I'll take the guys through this. I'll do, I'll have them set. And so the ability to do that, their ability to do that really, really helped, because that piece of delegating those things became a lot easier as well because of their ability.
What was one thing that was a little more challenging than you would have anticipated?
So probably you got to always be on. And I remember hearing that at clinics. I remember Kevin Eastman, I heard him say one time, there's 2 people in the program that can't have a bad day, the head coach and the best player. And I remember that, I remember thinking back as an assistant, like there are days where you can go to practice and, you can fake your way through it basically if you have to. And I don't want you to think I did that a lot. I just want
Yeah, there were a lot of times I was worried about you, Fish.
So, but just that, you got to be on all the time, and at practice you got to be sharp. And if something's not done the right way and you let it go, that means that you don't really care about it. And that ability to do that on a daily basis is challenging. It also stems outside of practice, and you're out in the community. We have football here, and there are big events, and every football game for me was a lot of work, just in terms of talking to people and doing that stuff. So I think just that idea of always being on, and you talk a lot. People, you go out and whether it's at they said those football games or social gatherings, a lot of speaking engagements, those kind of things. So I got tired of hearing myself talk.
That can happen. I've never been accused of talking.
No, I know that's never happened to you.
That's never happened to me. I think a lot of people would be interested, if as much as you can share, take us through kind of the process by which you ended up becoming the coach at William & Mary. How did that process take place? What was the interview process like? And, for maybe, an assistant coach who's trying to get a head coaching job, whether it be in high school, college, whatever it might be, what kind of things did you learn through the process?
Yeah. So, the process here was, it was pretty simple. Really, it was a phone interview that went to an interview with a committee that ended up being, that led to an on-campus interview. And it was over the course of, I think a week or 10 days. In terms of if for preparing yourself for it, there's a lot of things you need to do. At least I think the line you gave me was the best one. And just, you got to think like a head coach, even when you're not in the position, so that you just start thinking of all the different channels that you're going to have to be connected to when you are the head coach. And then the other thing is, in terms of going through the process of interviewing, I heard no a lot in interviews I went through, and some of those interviews I know I didn't do as well as I should have or could have. Some other ones I felt like, boy, I did a great job. I should really, I should get this job, and I didn't. And I think you have to take all of those as learning experiences, try to figure out where are some ways I can get better. And, and every season, you want to try to get better in terms of your prep to interview to get a job, but I think more importantly, your preparation to actually executing the job once you do get that opportunity.
That's great. And so now, and at whatever point is appropriate for you to share your screen, I know, we're going to get into some reads against ball screens, but I think you have some slides as well in terms of, okay, so now you've gotten the job at William & Mary. Take us through, the key steps that you felt were important in terms of building your program in your vision. And so whenever you want to share your screen, go ahead.
I'll pull this up here in a second. So the very first thing that was most important is just the attention to the people. And to me, that was the current players. And we had a pretty unique situation here with a lot of guys in the transfer portal. We had a guy, going through the NBA, testing the waters for the NBA draft. There was a lot of uncertainty, and then certainly the other part of that with people being, hiring a staff. And what I wanted to do right away is I wanted to meet with every player off the court, and I told them that I wasn't going to go on the court to work out with them until I had a chance to sit down and just have a 30 to 45-minute conversation, not about basketball, just about life, and learn about their family, let them ask questions about me and my background. So that was the very first thing I did. And then again, hiring that staff, and then certainly trying to connect with as many people as I could, whether it be alums or people on campus, and just try to, try to connect with as many people as possible. The next thing that I thought was really important was to establish our core values. And, this was something that I, certainly picked up from you in our time, was just the importance of having core values. And I'm just going to pull this up here. All right, you got that?
Yep, we can see it.
So for us, our core values, they are trust, hard work, communication, toughness, and focus. And I'll go through defining what they are here in a second. But what I'll start with first was that the way that we went about building this with our players. So the guys that were, we just weren't sure what our roster was going to be like when I first got here. And we had a couple of weeks to do some workouts, and we just did some basic workouts. But when we got back here for summer workouts, that's when we knew that we'd have our team in place. And it was at that point that I really wanted to start with our core values. So we had our guys here for 5 weeks, and each week of the summer we spent talking about our one core value. And we just wanted to be really slow in building it, and wanted to have the guys to, be a part of it. And the way that we would do it is our guys would have breakfast every morning together as a team, and 3 days out of the week, the assistant coaches would go over and they would break up in small groups, and we would talk about each value. So the first one being trust. And trust was the most interesting one, because when we said trust, I think our guys initially thought they were going to have to unveil deep, dark secrets, and I think people can confuse trust with, kind of a deeper relationship with somebody. So, but we would go through and our assistant coaches would meet with the guys, and that would be on Mondays and Wednesdays. And on Friday, we would all get together and talk about, what we learned and how we would define it. So I'll just go through for us. So trust in our program is just, it's consistent, reliable behavior. That's all we talk about when it comes to trust. And we talk about that academically. We talk about that in terms of how you handle yourself socially. And then we talk about it, obviously, as it pertains to basketball. Hard work for us is just, I tell everybody that the word should just be effort, because we're just talking about your effort level. I just like the phrase hard work. So we say, hard work as it pertains to, again, just the effort that you exude. Communication is huge in our program. It starts with body language. And then the second thing we talk about with communication, is it positive? Is it productive? And productive that doesn't mean the tone always has to be, super happy and go lucky and all that stuff, but it just needs to be productive. And we'll talk about that with our guys. And then the last two, toughness, we just define as the ability to do the right thing when it's hard to do it. We talk way more about the mental toughness than we do physical, although we certainly talk about, loose balls and rebounds and taking charges and making those toughness plays. And then I think a big element of toughness is having that next play mentality. And then the last one, focus, we talk about, that's the ability to compartmentalize. Again, these guys are pulled in a lot of different directions for what they have to do between schoolwork and basketball and social life. And then, the other part of it is just the ability to lock in on the task at hand. So the way that we will use our core values, and I think this slide, it's a pretty good example of it. with trust, okay, let me back up first. With our core values, we use this a lot to determine our playing time. And the first thing that guys want to do is, I say, coach, I want to play more. What I need to do to play more. And we will sit down and we'll say, okay, well, let's just talk about core values. And, so we say it's consistent, reliable behavior. Okay. Well, number one, how are you as a worker? Okay. How are you as a communicator? How's your toughness and how's your focus? And the way that we will use this is we have a scale of 1 through 5 that we'll grade our players on in each category. And, usually a guy comes in and sits down and he says, coach, I want to play more. I said, okay, well, let's talk about your effort level. Okay. Our team score is a 3. Our team average at effort level is a 3.8, and our staff has you at 2.5 as your average. Okay. Communication, our team average is this. Right now we've got you at this. Toughness, focus, etc. And we're evaluating that, number one, in their attention to their academics and how they're handling themselves in the community and socially. And if there's ever any issues there, the conversation about playing time is usually done. And if it ever, needs to go further, and we say, okay, the first thing we need to be able to do as coaches, we have to be able to trust you on the floor. And what we mean by being able to trust you on the floor, okay, in addition to you having great effort, communication, toughness, and focus, okay, are these 3 things defensively. Can you guard your position? Can you defend without fouling? And do you understand our scheme? And on offense, do you take care of the ball? Do you take good shots? And can you execute our offense? And very rarely does the conversation go any farther than this in terms of, guys wanting to know about their playing time. The other way that we will use our core values that's really helpful, I think, with just communicating a consistent message to our players. At the end of the season, when we do our player evaluations, we'll do those same ratings. We'll rate their core values. They'll rate their own. We'll have a team average. It's a really good guideline for them in terms of when we ask them for what are your areas for improvement. A lot of times guys will just write down areas that will make them a better basketball player. And it's all true. I got to get better off the bounce. I got to finish better. I got to be a more consistent 3-point shooter, whatever it may be. And, it's a good framework for us to say, hey, these are all really true. These will all help you be better. But when you talk about playing time, right now your biggest issue is you don't understand our defensive scheme. Okay, or you foul too much. So you've really got to make sure you're focusing on that. Or you're third in our team in turnovers in practice. Okay, so you might get better finishing at the rim. You might be a guy that can shoot more threes. But if you're going to have the same turnover numbers next year, it's going to be really hard for your playing time to improve. So that is how we will use this stuff with our guys. We talk core values all the time. Every single practice we're referencing them. We try to do as much pointing out positives as we do attention to the negatives. So, hey, this ball screen coverage worked because that was just great effort. The guy guarding the ball really working, and there was unbelievable communication from the 4 guys behind him and those kind of things. The last thing with this that I'll talk about just in terms of building our program. Well, let me stop. You got any questions here, Coach?
Well,
I'm rambling here.
No, this is great. So my one question. So I always feel like I reference our core values a ton. Yep. It sounds like you might even reference them more.
Yeah, I think so, because I thought the same thing. I think if you ask anybody, that's played for you, passion, talk, toughness, focus, I think they all know it. And I always thought that was important. And so we probably do, because we try to find when we can reference them, and we can reference them all the time. And there's areas of it. We watch a film clip. Why do we not defend this play well? Well, right here, we just had horrible communication because we didn't have anything said. We got, this guy didn't give enough effort, and, we got 2 guys over here that aren't focused. And again, conversely, the positive, look at this is a great play. Like, we get a guy, he gets in here, he plays off 2 feet, he kicks it there, he trusts his teammates going to make the next, the shot, all those kind of things. So we talk about it all the time. Anytime we're playing well, we're highlighting them. Anytime we're not playing well, we're looking at areas that we need to improve.
That's great. So my second follow-up question is, 13 freaking years as my assistant, how come you never went to the extreme to tell me, go back to your last screen. Can you go back to that last screen? Like, I love this. And so, like, what the heck were you doing those 13 years? Because this is great. I felt like I always preached to our core values, but defining that in this way, defensively, offensively, making them, behaviorally specific, I think is great. So, for me, like, I'm stealing this slide and then tweaking it to our core values, which, are very similar, but they're different because it's got to be for you. So I love it. And just a little bit ticked off that you didn't come with this idea. You gave me a ton of ideas over the years. This is great. So that's awesome.
And so this will be the perfect time that I can give you the line that I know you've been just dying for me to say. Now that I've been a head coach, I know I would have been a much better assistant. Okay?
Yeah, great. Yeah. Well, no, there's no question, right? Like, what are your concerns?
Yep.
It certainly helped. But this is anyone who's watching it who's interested in coaching, this right here, I think anytime you do a clinic or go to a clinic, hey, if I can walk away with one thing that I can use, this to me, thinking specifically about what you value and how it translates onto behavior academically in the community and tangible actions on the court. Because I think the goal in coaching is to make the ambiguous unambiguous, to make the gray areas very clear for players, so that they can know how they can perform within your system. So I think this is awesome.
Yeah, great. That sounds good. So the next one I'll go to is, so this is the pyramid that we have in our locker room, and really the core values, this pyramid, like this is pretty much our program. So as you see the bottom layer, the core values, we just talked about that. So we talk about the foundation of our program, the core values, and our relationships. And those are the 2 areas that we spend the most time on. That next layer up for us, preparation. We looked at some numbers prior to starting our workouts in the fall with our guys. And we took 2 players in our program that had played the most minutes in college basketball. One was going to be a senior for us, one was a grad transfer. And what we had found was that between the 2 of them, Nathan Knight, who was a senior, had spent 97% of his time in college either in practice, in lifts, or in film sessions. And Bryce Barnes, who was our grad transfer, had spent 99% of his time in those 3 areas. That does not account for any kind of extra work you do in the gym, any kind of extra film you watch, anytime you're going to the training room, anytime you're spending attention to nutrition, to sleep, etc. So, really what we just wanted our guys to see was how much of your time is spent in preparation and the importance of it. And those, again, that's for 2 guys that play it all the time. And so you can imagine what the numbers are for the guys that don't play as many minutes or aren't even in your rotation. And what we talk about with our guys all the time is to focus on our core values and our preparation, and that as a coaching staff, we want to make all of our decisions based on those 2 areas, and in particular in preparation. The reason that I actually kind of came to this was the team that we had, Coach, our 3rd year at George Mason, we had 8 scholarship players, and that were eligible to play. And I always felt like that team achieved more than it probably should have on paper. I thought that one of the reasons that they were able to do it is that guys were very aware of like where they were in their roles. They knew they were going to play. They knew how much they were going to play. And I felt that was something that really helped that team So we try to do that with our players. Now we have, more than 8 guys eligible to play. So we talk to our guys all the time about, like, we are going to make our decisions based on your core values and your preparation. And if you want to earn minutes, you've got to earn it through your preparation. And then you also have to understand that you might do well in your preparation and not get that opportunity to play just because of the rotation. But that was a big thing for us this year, was just continuing to talk about the time spent there and making those decisions. The next layer up for us is performance. And what we mean by performance is just that idea of going out and playing as well as we can play. One of the things that I noticed when I first got here was the attention to results that our guys had. And it was like every possession was like a live and die. Like, did the ball go in? Did it not go in? Did we make a mistake? Did we not make a mistake? And I needed our guys to understand, like, you guys we've got to be a team that can just do things, just go out there and compete the right way and do the right thing. So when we talk about performance, it's that idea of, are we generating the shots that we want to generate? And defensively, are we forcing the shots that we want to force and playing at the right level? And obviously everybody in coaching knows that you can have a possession where you can do really poorly on either end of the floor and the result can go your way. And I wanted us to have that idea of just focus on let's play possessions really, really well and not worry about that result. And obviously you see the top of the pyramid is the results. We'll tell our guys, like, it's not like we're going to sit here and tell you results don't matter. They certainly do. But it's these 3 layers that are going to get us to the results that we need. And so this is really how we built our entire team this year, was the core values and then following this guideline. And, again, when we're playing well, hey, what are we doing well in preparation? Where are we performing at a high level? And then when we're not playing well, are there some areas we need to tweak with our preparation, either as coaches or as players? And then, where can we focus on playing a little bit better?
That's awesome.
There's our program. That's it right there.
We're going to get, and not that I have all the answers or any answers, but to any coach that's watching this, in my opinion, we're going to get to your ball screen reads, but this is a foundation. And every time I've looked back on a season with satisfaction or joy, it was because of how close we performed according to our core values. Did we get everyone bought in? Did we have a group that fought and competed and prepared well? And every time you look back, with regret, it was the bottom of your pyramid or whatever pyramid is. And so certainly for me, as a guy who's been a head coach for 26 years, like, I'm going to write, your core values and how they are deliverables, if you will, defensively, offensively, and we're going to come up with our pyramid. Okay. And I think this exercise is really important for anyone. And so this is awesome. And to me, again, selfishly, if we can spread some information and I can donate to a charity of my cause, but like, I got a little bit better just in your last 2 slides. And I think that's really awesome. But certainly some people tuning in, you're going to want to have a little X's and O's sequence. So I think the next thing, unless there's things that we haven't covered in these 2, but I think this is just awesome. The next thing would be sharing your screen and some reads that you taught your guys playing out of ball screens.
Yep, absolutely, and I'll get to that. Yeah, I think I would agree with what you said first. That I think that anything that we did on the court, it always came back to those core values, talking about our preparation and going and playing as well as we could. And as we try to build this up and do as well as we can with this program, I think the biggest thing that we're trying to take away is, or the biggest thing we're trying to do is give clarity to our players. These are the expectations, and this is how you'll be evaluated. And I think that was something that we were able to do this year, which helped. And it helped that we had the player of the year in the league too.
It also helped that you had the coach of the year in the league as well, which I forgot to mention at the beginning. But yes, player of the year in the league definitely makes for a smarter coach. That's
exactly right. So, all right. So I'm gonna just go through here. I'll talk just some ball screen stuff again. More of the focus of this is going to be on the actual, the guys in the ball screen or the reads from guys, off the ball, as opposed to certain sets or ways we get into it and that kind of thing. So I'll play this here. Is this running okay? Can you see it all right?
Yep. It's coming through pretty good.
Perfect. So the first one we're going to have here, just when teams would hedge ball screens against us, we were trying to play back to the bigs every single time. So one thing that we would do against a hard hedge is we would talk to our guys about get up close to the screen, but we didn't want to get all the way there because we wanted them to stop, turn, and just kind of backpedal off of it and try to create a window we could throw to. And there'll be a couple of clips of it. So
you're saying the screener don't come right up to the defender, get close, and then backpedal.
Yep. So here's a clip of it, and there'll be the next one's actually even a little bit better. But again, just trying to get there and present. Here there'll be two of them here. Stops a little bit short and gets to some space. Didn't have his finish. This next one is even better. Just gets there and just kind of plants and turns. And then we did a lot of this, just cutting off of reads from there. So, but I'll just show that last ball screen. This is a really good example of it. And
it's against Towson. They traditionally really hard hedge.
They're very aggressive with their hard hedge, but you can kind of see there he stops with, probably a good step before he gets to the screen. His defender is now going out, so he just creates this pocket that we can throw to, and then we cut when the defender goes and stunts at our big. So.
And most of the time, those passes are, like the half roll.
Yep, we're trying to throw it to him pretty much as soon as we can get there. The other thing that we would do, like everybody, is, and again, it's going to be the same. It's going to be the same look from our big here, and now we're just going to throw to the guard on the throwback pass. But there, he just kind of sets it. He's starting to backpedal off. That draws the help, so now we make the throwback and get to drive and kick. But our guys got really good. Our guards got really good at throwing it, and the bigs did a good job of just making themselves available. This is a similar clip, and the only difference is going to be we would do this a lot with if you watch the guard here up at the top. In addition to kind of replace him behind for a throwback, we would let our guys cut a lot. And you'd be happy to know that we do call it a jersey, Coach. So that,
there you go.
Stuck with terminology. So what this was good for was this kid was not a great three-point shooter at all, but he was a phenomenal cutter, and he really learned how to create some offense by just, mainly causing confusion on rotations. And we get a kick out there. Get another clip of it here. Sorry, this is a different clip. Again, Big's doing the same thing. Setting it right here. He creates a pretty good pocket. He actually rolls a little bit too much in line with the defender and kind of gets in the way. But if he can just roll right in that gap right there that we're trying to create, that's really what we're trying to do. We get to a second one. Same thing here, just kind of stops short. He starts to roll off of it. And we end up kind of, we punch on the weak side here, and our guard gets all the way downhill to the rim. But that was a big thing that we talked about against those hedges. Same thing here. He just stops short. His defender is starting to make his way out there, and that was kind of the timing we talked about. As soon as you see your guy start to go, get your back pedal. Let's get it to you. We flooded on the weak side there. All those terms that you taught me over the years, Coach. So same thing here coming up. Again, we get some just stopping right there and creating this again. This is what we're trying to create. This kind of a pocket that we can go to. Our guy pops here, and we're flooded already. So we get ourselves some really good stuff here with going out the opposite side for a three. But that was something we got pretty good at as the year went on. Teams that try to drop coverage, a couple of things we would do. First of all, we would talk about setting the ball screen below the foul line here as much as we could, just because it's hard, because when you get the corner turn from here, you got a really good chance of getting a piece of the paint. So as low as we could set it on the floor, we thought that led to some really good stuff for us. And then the other thing that we work a lot on against that drop coverage is a lot of teams are going to, bring their help defenders in as well, was just cutting from the perimeter. And this will be a good clip of that, making that jersey cut. So here's the ball screen. Again, and this team was trying to down the screen, but obviously we were able to use it here. And then this guy is just caught watching. So just making that cut. We did that a ton, of cutting away from the ball. This would be another good clip of that. Ball screen here, he's going to pop, and then the stunt's going to come from the corner, and then we'll make the jersey cut right here. So one thing that I thought was kind of unique with how we played was, of these two guys, this is the better shooter of the two of them. So we let him pop a lot because it was going to cause attention. Whereas if he was going to roll for us all the time, they're going to help. And now we're going to throw back to a guy that, maybe put as much pressure on the defense because he's not a great threat out there. We just kind of flipped it here, and there's our pick, and there's our 3-point threat. And then we get our guard diving to the rim. So, that was just a little different than, what normally you see in that set.
When you're facing drop coverage,
yep,
the screener, would you have him, against the hedges, you had him stop short and backpedal.
Yep.
Against drop coverage, it looks like you're going further and actually setting the screen. Is that correct?
Yes. Yep. So we're talking about going and making contact, and then and this I'll show this last one. This is actually a good clip of it. Once they make this contact, and you can see here, like I guess he doesn't make a ton of great contact, but he's trying to.
You could say that about most people.
Yeah, the one before you screen him. We did talk a lot of times about just kind of holding your spot, or just moving a little bit. We felt like you didn't have to really get separation as much at times against the drop coverage, because if the guard could attack at all, that big is in a tough situation, and there'll be a couple of clips, I believe, of that. So we had a lot of teams that would try to run under us. So our first thing was to just set the ball screen lower so we could get a really good three off. There's a good clip of that. And the other thing that we would talk about is, I think this is the same clip again. Again, this is a good clip of our bigs are really smart. You can see how much he's going to adjust this angle. I mean, he's down by the foul line or below to set it. And then this is the really good clip. This is a total non-shooter for us. Obviously, those ones we were able to stop behind. But, getting that ball screen again, we're below the foul line, which I think is harder to run under. And you watch where he goes to set this thing. I mean, he kind of he's 15 feet from the basket. Now we're able to make him go over the top to create a driving kick. And that kid off that ball screen is a complete non-threat other than to be able to drive it all the way to the rim. So, and yeah, Coach, stop me whenever you need to if there's other things you want me to talk through.
No, this is great for me. So this is fun.
That's good. You might be the only guy listening to this.
Well, you know what? We're doing a service. We're donating to charity, to causes. We're talking ball. And if one or two other people learn from it,
I love it.
Then it's all good. And if not, what else are we going to do on a Friday afternoon?
There you go. That's right. We talked a lot about refusing, which we talk about in general. But I think when teams try to run under, I think it can be really effective because this guy's thinking about trying to navigate under that screen. There's usually some space for the guard to be able to make a dribble move and get to the rim there. So, and then the last thing we would do is we would let our guys just kind of play with the screen a little bit. So, set a rescreen, kind of come back, just try to let them navigate it. And that was a good clip of it there. That's just, two pretty smart players just kind of giving them that freedom. Switches, which I will say we did not see very many of this year.
Surprising.
Yeah. A lot of that had to do with the versatility of the bigs. But when we did see switches, the very first thing that we wanted to try to do was like the old pick and roll, like Stockton and Malone. So here's a good clip of it. Set it, roll, and throw it to him on the roll. That was the first thing we would always look for, was that big trying to seal his man. This will be another one. It's not quite the same pick and roll, but the big sets it, he seals, and we just wanted him to try to keep that seal so we could throw it. So I think I think that can be hard to guard if you got to switch to a guy that's got a size advantage, which most of the time you're going to. The other thing against switches, we would do the same thing that we do against the hard hedge. So we'd come up to the screen, kind of stop, get them in that. Are you switching? Are you not switching? Backpedal your way, get that catch, and then we had to cut along the baseline. So I'll show that one again. I think that was a pretty good clip of it. So, and really what we're talking about as we go to this screen with these guys is once you see them start to get into the ball screen coverage. Okay, so once you see them start to talk the switch is when you can stop and start trying to create some confusion and create that space to throw to. And there again, the kid cutting along the baseline against that stunt from his guy. The other thing we talked about with switches, if we did set the ball screen, was just to get it out of our guys' hands. A lot of times we wanted to kick it ahead, so our big had an opportunity to just kind of roll and find his post up where he needed it. And then the last one, this one is just one where the possession kind of goes. We don't really attack the switch, but we get some decent offense. So they switch here. We get a decent offense on the drive, and then we get a little bit stuck. We've still got the mismatch, and now we just kind of let it get back there and throw it in the post from a high-low. So those were some of the things against the switches there. And like I said, we just didn't see a ton of it, throughout the year. Right. Against the down or the ice coverage, very first thing we would talk about would be a quick reversal and a baseline drive. And you see a good clip of it here. They're trying to get to the down coverage, but we were able to reverse it quickly and attack along the baseline. This will be another good example. We always wanted to make, when we see this coverage, we always want to make that big feel like he's really got to play our guard. And here's another good example. He just rips it and drives along the baseline and creates offense there. And then if we were able to play back to our bigs, we would. This will be a little longer possession of it. You'll see us kind of get to it a little bit later. So we're inside, we're outside, we're back here. Again, they're not quite in it because we had a good reversal. We're attacking along the baseline. Good space on the weak side. One thing I will say in our offense in general, we prioritize space over anything else. And this was a line one of our assistant coaches had that they use at a place that he had been, which I really liked, is, for the three guys not involved in the ball screen, put your heels on the sideline. And I thought that was always really good. And, we've got a little bit of movement here, but if you see when we get to this at a point of attack here, we've got a guy in the corner here, like, this is perfect. We're getting this guy here toward, he's catching this. He's heels to the sideline on the catch. And we've got a really good space over here, so that if we do play back to this big, it's a little bit of a dilemma for the defense. But I thought that was great. I thought that was a great way to phrase it for your players when they weren't the guys involved in the two-man action. So another good clip against the down, and this would be another thing that we would do. Again, we had pick and pop threats at the big, which really made this hard to guard. But I think that any team that downs a ball screen, this guy here is always going to be stunting. I think that's kind of ingrained in how teams do it. So we would cut this guy a lot. And, here's along the baseline drive, and the guy just loses him. So we would work on that, cutting from the weak side against the down. Here's another one, just the middle ball screen. They weak it. Again, this space, I think the space is huge here. This guy heels to the sideline. You can't even see the guy in the corner who's about to get the basket, but we've got really good space. Here's a little bit of like a stunt. He's watching him, and we just made that cut along the baseline, which, again, our guys got really good at just reading the back of their guys' heads. Again, what sets this all up is the ability for our big to be able to make this shot. That obviously you got to shoot. That helps a lot. So, and then here's another one, and this is just a different. It's the same cut from up here. It's just going to be delivered from the big now. So, again, you throw it. There's the stunt. You can see the timing of it. We told our guys, as soon as you felt like you saw your guy looking, you could go. And our guy is almost on his way. He's almost cutting before this guy even goes to make his stunt. And thought that was really good for us, again, because a lot of times the guys that were the bigger perimeter threats for us were our perimeter guys, but we still wanted to keep that pressure on the basket by letting our guards cut. So then the last one that we would do is just the rescreen. So, we come here like we're setting the ball screen, we rescreen it, and now we get ourselves to the middle of the floor and an attack and a closeout. So that's my clinic, DP. That's what
good.
I got for ball screen stuff. I can talk through any more of that stuff or any other questions you got. You tell me. It's your show.
No, that was good. And we started at 11 o'clock. It's 11:57. We said we're going to do an hour, about 30 minutes of talking and 30 minutes of ball screen reads. Yeah. So I'm just trying to think how much, at what point in your preparation, in the season, are you working against different ball screen coverages? Are you doing it from day one?
Pretty close to, yeah. We had a similar, we have a similar practice structure to what you have, and obviously that's what I was, comfortable with, and I really liked the way that we always practiced. So we would do a similar kind of, 20 minutes of skill development at the beginning, a combination of shooting and perimeter post stuff, and it was usually there that we would start working on, the different ball screen coverages and what we're going to see. Some of it was a mix of guards and bigs. A lot of it, to be honest with you, was just, the perimeters on one end and the post at the other end. And we just talked to the bigs about, okay, against the hard hedge, here's our teaching points, and against the teams that are going to drop coverage, here it is. And then the guards would be working on all their different attacks against it. And then the thing that we did work a lot on with the guards was playing off of those a big picks and pops, and we're saying your guy stunts, and now you're going to cut along you're making that cut, and then that's either going to be a basket or it's going to lead to a driving kick. That was probably one thing that we didn't like a lot of, because of how much we just played off of those bigs, and how much variety the bigs would have with, they would roll and they would pop and they would do it at random times. And I thought that made it hard for the defense to have that variety.
When you were in what I would call the spread ball screen, and so you let your big pop.
Yep.
But sometimes he'd roll as well. Was it challenging for the guard in the corner to read what he was doing, or not as much as I would have thought?
Not as much, but we did. I will say, we did work on that a lot. So we would say, hey, we're in our spread, okay, and the big is popping on this side, and then we go the other side, he's rolling, and you got to be able to see that. And when he pops, you're gonna make your jersey cut. When he rolls, you're
making your throwback.
And then and again, this is our assistant coaches did all these breakdowns, and they'd go in there one day and they'd say, okay, it's a spread. I'm either popping or I'm rolling. You got to read it and make the play out of it.
Yep.
So that was always that was certainly really helpful, and we did get very good, I thought, at making those reads, kind of against that, against those three guys in the ball screen coverage that are zoned up or stunting or whatever it may be. We worked a lot on making reads against what those three guys do.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Are you good to share your email address if anyone who watches this wants to get more information?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Email is dfischer, which is FISCHER @wm.edu.
Awesome. This has been great, Coach Fish. It brings back so many memories of us having things to do and then getting sidetracked and talking ball screen offense, defense, things like that. I've learned a bunch or re-engaged with some things, which I think was great. And again, for those watching, I'm going to be giving to DC Central Kitchen. You can find how to donate DC Central Kitchen, all one word, .org, and then you can go to / and donate. Coach Fisher is going to donate to a local food bank in the Williamsburg area. And again, this is a fun time for us to think globally about the game of basketball that we all love, but also hopefully globally about trying to give back to people who certainly are not in as fortunate a situation as we are. So again, anyone who watches, encourage you to find a cause that you hold dear to your heart and give back. Thank you so much, Dane.
DP, thanks for having me, buddy.